From the lyric poems of John Keats. I stood tiptoe upon a little hill. The air was cooling and so very still that the sweet buds, which with a modest pride pulled droopingly in slanting curve aside, their scantly leaved and finely tapering stems, had not yet lost those starry diadems, caught from the early sobbing of the morn. The clouds were pure and white as flocks new shorn, and fresh from the clear brook, sleetly they slept on the blue fields of heaven, and then there crept a little noiseless noise among the leaves, born of the very sigh that silence heaves, for not the faintest motion could be seen of all the shades that slanted o'er the green. There was wide wandering for the greediest eye to peer about upon variety, far round the horizon's crystal air to skim, and trace the dwindled edgings of its brim, to picture out the quaint and curious bending of the fresh woodland alley, never ending, or by the bowery clefts and leafy shelves, guessed where the jaunty streams refresh themselves. I gazed a while, and felt as light and free as though the fanning wings of Mercury had played upon my heels. I was lightheaded, and many pleasures to my vision started, so I straightway began to pluck a posy of luxuries bright, milky, soft, and rosy. A bush of penny flowers with the bees about them, sure no tasteful nook would be without them, and let a lush laburnums oversweep them, and let long grass grow round the roots to keep them moist, green, and cool, and shade the violets, that they may bind the moss and leafy nets. A filbert hedge with wild briar overtwined, and clumps of woodbine taking the soft wind upon their summer thrones. There too should be the frequent checker of a young tree, that with a score of light green brethren shoots from the quaint mossiness of aged roots, round which is heard a spring head of clear waters, babbling so wildly of its lovely daughters. The spreading bluebells, it may haply mourn that such fair clusters should be rudely torn from their fresh beds and scattered thoughtlessly by infant hands, left on the path to die. Open afresh your rounds of starry folds, ye ardent marigolds. Dry up the moisture from your golden lid, for great Apollo bids that in these days your praises should be sung on many harps which he has lately strung. And when again your doingness he kisses, tell him I have you in my world of blisses. So haply when I rove in some far vale, his mighty voice may come upon the gale. Here are sweet peas on tiptoe for a flight, with wings of gentle flush or delicate white, and taper fingers catching at all things, to bind them all about with tiny rings. Linger a while upon some blending place, that lean against a streamlet's rushy banks, and watch intently nature's gently doings. They will be found softer than ring-dove cooing. How silent comes the water round that bend, not the minutest whisper does it send to the overhanging sallows, blades of glass, solely across the checkered shallows pass. Why, you might read 2 sonnets ere they reach to where the hurrying freshness I preach, a natural sermon over their pebbly beds, where swarms of minnows show their little heads, staying their wavy bodies against the streams, to taste the luxury of sunny beams, tempered with coolness. How they ever wrestle with their own sweet delight, and ever nestle their silver bellies on the pebbly sand. If you but scantily hold out the hand, that very instant not one will remain, but turn your eyes, and they are there again. The ripples seem right glad to reach those cresses, and cool themselves among the emerald tresses, that while they cool themselves their freshness give, their moisture, and that the bowery green may live. So keeping up an interchange of favors, like good men in the truth of their behaviors. Sometimes goldfinches one by one will drop from low-hanging branches, little space they stop, but sip and twitter, and their feathers sleek, then off at once, as in a wanton freak, or perhaps to show their black and golden wings, pausing upon their yellow flutterings. Were I in such a place, I sure should pray that naught less sweet might call my thoughts away. Then the soft rustle of a maiden's gown, fanning away the dandelion's dawn. Then the light music of her nimble toes, banding against the sorrel as she goes. How she would start and thus blush to be caught, playing in all her innocence of thought. Oh, let me lead her gently over the brook, watch her half-smiling lips and downward look. Oh, let me for one moment touch her wrist, let me for one moment to her breathing list. And as she leaves me, may she often turn, her fair eyes looking through her locks all burn. What next? A tuft of evening primroses, or which the mind may hover till it doses. Oh, which it well might take a pleasant sleep, but that 'tis ever startled by the leap of buds into white flowers, or by the flitting of diverse moths that their rest are quitting, or by the moon lifting her silver rim above a cloud, and with a gradual swim coming into the blue with all her light. O maker of sweet poets, dear delight of this fair world and all its gentle livers, spangler of clouds, halo of crystal rivers, mingler with leaves, and dew and doubling streams, closer of lovely eyes to lovely dreams, lover of loneliness and wandering, of upcast eyes and tender pondering. Thee I must brave above all other glories that smile us on to tell delightful stories. For what has made the sage or poet write but the fair paradise of nature's light? In the calm grandeur of a sober line, we see the waving of the mountain pine, and when a tale is beautifully stayed, we feel the safety of a hawthorn glade. When it is moving on luxurious wings, the soul is lost in pleasant smotherings. Fair dewy roses brush against our face, and flowering laurels spring from diamond vases. O'erhead we see the jasmine and sweet briar, and bloomy grapes laughing from green attire, while at our feet the voice of crystal bubbles charms us once away from all our troubles, so that we may feel uplifted from the world. Walking upon the white clouds wreathed and curled, so felt he who first told how Psyche went on the smooth wind to realms of wonderment. What Psyche felt and love when their full lips first touched, what amorous and fondling nips they gave each other's cheeks with all their sighs, and how they kissed each other's tremulous eyes. The silver-lined lamp, the ravishment, the wonder, the darkness, loneliness, the fearful thunder, their woes gone by, and both to heaven upflown, to bow for gratitude before Jove's throne. So did he feel, who pulled the boughs aside, that we might look into a forest wide, to catch a glimpse of fawns and dryads coming with soft fizz rustle through the trees, and garlands woven above flowers wild and sweet, upheld on ivory wrists or sporting feet. Tell us how fair trembling Syrinx fed Arcadian Pan with such a fearful dread. Poor Pan, how did he weep to find naught but a lovely sighting of the wind along a reedy stream, a half-heard strain full of sweet desolation, balmy pain. What first inspired a bard of old to sing Narcissus pining over the untainted spring? In some delicious ramble he had found a little space with boughs all woven round, and in the midst of all a clearer bowl, than air reflected in its pleasant cool the blue sky here and there, serenely peeping through gentle wreaths, fantastically creeping. And on the bank a lonely flower he spied, a meek and forlorn flower with naught of pride, drooping its beauty over the watery clearness, to woo its own sad image into nearness. Deaf to light Zephyrus it would not move, but still would seem to droop, to pine, to love. So while the poet stood in the sweet spot, some fainter gleamings over his fancy shot, nor was it long ere he had told the tale of young Narcissus and sad Echo's vale. Where had he been from whose warm head outflew the sweetest of all songs that ever knew, that eye-refreshing pure deliciousness, coming ever to bless the wanderer but by moonlight, to him bringing shapes from the invisible world, unearthly singing from out the middle air, from flowery nests and from the pillowy silkiness that rests, full in the speculation of the stars. Ah, surely he had burst our mortal bars. Into some wondrous region he had gone, to search for the divine Endymion. He was a poet, sure a lover too, who stood on lattice's top, would time there blew soft breezes from the myrtle vale below, and brought in faintless, solemn, sweet, and slow a hymn from Diana's temple, while upswelling the incense went to her own starry dwelling. But though her face was as clear as infant's eyes, though she stood stern over the sacrifice, the poet wept at her so piteous fate, wept that such beauty should be desolate. So in fine with some golden sounds he won, and gave meek Cynthia her Endymion. Queen of the white hair, thou most lovely queen of all the brightness that mine eyes have seen, as thou exceedest all things in thy shine, so every tale does the sweet tale of thine. Oh, for 3 words of honey, that I might tell but one wonder of that bridal night, where distant ships do seem to show their keels, Phoebus awhile delay his mighty wheels, and turn to smile upon thy bashful eyes, ere he his unseen pomp would solemnize. The evening weather was so bright and clear that men of health were of unusual cheer, stepping like Homer at the trumpet's call, or young Apollo on the pedestal, and lovely women were as fair as warm as Venus looking sideways in alarm. The breezes were ethereal and pure, and crept through half-close lattices to cure the languid sick. It cooled their fevered sleep, and soothed them into slumbers full and deep. Soon they awoke clear-eyed, nor burnt with thirsting, nor with hot fingers, nor with temples bursting. And springing up, they met the wondering sight of their dear friends, night foolish with delight, who feel their arms and breasts, and kiss and stare, and on their flaccid forehead part the hair. Young men and maidens at each other gazed, with hands held back and motionless, amazed to see the brightness in each other's eyes. And so they stood, filled with sweet surprise, until their tongues were loosed and posy. Therefore no lover did of anguish die, but the soft numbers in that moment spoken made silken ties that may never be broken. Cynthia, I cannot tell the greater blisses that follow thine and thy dear shepherd's kisses. Was there a poet born? But now no more. My wandering spirit much no further soar. To one who has been long and steady pent, 'tis very sweet to look into the fair and open face of heaven, to breathe a pair, full in the sight of the blue firmament, who's more happy than with heart's content. Fatigue he sinks into some pleasant lair of wavy grass, and reads a debonair and gentle tale of love and languishment. Returning home at evening, with an eye catching the notes of Philomel, an eye watching the sailing cloudlet's bright career, he mourns that day so soon has glided by, e'en like the passage of an angel's tear that falls through the clear ether silently. Subscribe below for more whispering content. Sleep well.